Yes. This is the Sports Porch Philadelphia, all over the world on LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and something else. I think it's called Facebook. No, we're not on the gram yet.
Let's just say we are.
Okay, why not? The gram, yes, the Sports Porch Philadelphia. And of course, you can always catch the Philadelphia Sports Porch or the Sports Porch Philadelphia. We haven't decided what to call it yet. You can always follow us on Spotify, Apple, iHeart Radio, or anywhere you get your
frickin' podcasts.
You know, I did let Rube do that last week.
I know. Yeah.
I think he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, he did. It was a nice venture into something new.
Yes. And I would be remiss if I did not also add that we do have a YouTube channel at Philadelphia Sports Porch. That's youtube.com at Philadelphia Sports Porch. And I'll be dropping the podcast right after the show. Eventful week in Philadelphia sports. We're going to get to that. What do we do here? Well, Mark here to my right in studio, the Grand Schwabini, and then Rube, who is now an optimistic Philly fan living in Texas. Okay. Joins us once again. He's become a staple on the show and what I consider the anchor because he's always here. And last week, Mark had a family event, I would call it.
Sure.
And how was your time with Neil?
It was quite enjoyable.
I'm sure it was.
Neil was in with his girlfriend of 2 years. And it was a lot of good evenings out.
Wholesome fun.
Dining.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Some good dining.
Yeah.
A few trips to some museums.
Right.
Got to take a look at the art in the area.
Yeah.
That's basically about it.
Was this Neil's first trip to Pittsburgh in a while, or first trip overall?
Oh, no.
Neil is Mark's father for all of you listening.
He's been here several times. But this was his first time in 2 years.
What is Neil's overall opinion of Pittsburgh?
Actually, he likes it.
Does he?
Yeah, he thinks it's well, the thing about Pittsburgh, and for those of you who don't know, I was born and raised in Philadelphia, lived half my life in Philadelphia, and now have since moved to Pittsburgh. The thing about nobody thinks Pittsburgh is any good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody still thinks Pittsburgh is this old steel town, and you're going to walk outside into a cloud of dust.
Right. Which sometimes is true.
Yeah. But when you get here and you see that there's, all these bridges and, kind of a beautiful downtown, and it's really been, revitalized. It surprises people how pretty the city is.
Who paid for the majority of the meals? You or Neil?
Oh, Neil.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes. This is one of those few weekends where I can, eat as I should.
Or you can expect things to be comped.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would be surprised if Neil didn't pay.
Right.
What's Neil's favorite museum here? And then we'll move on because it's a Philly show.
He really enjoyed the collection at the Carnegie Museum.
Of course he did.
Yes. A very nice impressionism.
Yes.
Hey.
Any thoughts on Neil maybe relocating to Pittsburgh? Would that make you feel closer to your father?
I don't think it's going to happen ever.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Rube, how are you this week?
I'm doing really well. Wonderful weekend. Saw my beloved Tennessee Volunteers beat Alabama.
Yeah.
I took the opportunity on Friday night. I saw Sting, so it was
very nice.
Circuit of the Americas and the F1 race every year in Austin, Texas, and Sting was here Friday night, and then they have Eminem on Saturday night. It was a good weekend. Lots of fun.
Sting is great, isn't he?
He was, 73 years old.
Yeah,
dude can still do it. Is in great shape. Yeah. Sounds phenomenal. I thought it was really good.
That's the big thing about Sting that you don't know unless you see him live in person. That like his voice is just like unbelievable. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. It hasn't changed. Honest to God, you thought it was like the Police up there. It was him and two other guys. And
well, he pretty much was the Police, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
played all the hits. Yeah, it's great weekend. Good week.
Good. The word I associate with Sting whenever I hear his name, his stage name is tantric, and only you guys will understand that.
I don't.
Look at him; he's confused. Do you know what I'm talking about, Rube?
Yeah, he's a big believer in it. I think his music kind of went kind of that tantric way for a while, but he's an in shape dude. I'll
Yeah.
put it that way. For 70, if I look that good
Yeah.
and I'm still tantricizing at 73, life is going to be good.
Is that a word?
I don't even know. I've
Tantricizing?
never even heard the word before. What's it mean?
Tantric? There were, yeah. Google it and be careful what you press on.
No, I want to know now.
Tantric is like I'm going to say like a yoga-ish meditation movement thing, but it also involves like the legend in the past was it involved Sting, who bragged about many, many hours of a certain act with his wife. Tantric. And you can put that word on the end.
Well, I mean, that sounds,
like what you do with Amy.
That sounds par for the course for Sting.
It's kind of like Sting is the straw stirring the drink.
Yeah,
it's exactly perfect pre-show reference. Okay, let's move on here. Page 1 this week. We're going to go in pages. Page 1 is the Saquon Barkley revenge game. Page 2, we're going to talk about the Dodgers clobbering the Mets, which I know makes all of us Phillies fans just a little happier. It takes a little of the sting away, right? Page 3.
That's the question will be, is that better or worse?
Well, I don't know. We'll find out. Page 3, Michkov Mania. You've got a beef to pick with our guest last week. Page 4 is everyone on the Sixers injured? Are they? And then page 5, we're going to move on to what we're watching right now. And then we got a few good things. So page 1, the Saquon Barkley revenge game, Eagles crush G-Men. I'm going to let you two diehard Eagles fans, I was going to say battle this out, but I don't think there might be some things when I looked at the statistics, because I was working during the game. So I was getting updates from some of my fellow coworkers who are Eagles fans.
Yeah.
And of course, what I was getting was, oh man, Saquon is just on a mission, and I was like, yeah, it was going to go one way or the other. So his revenge game ends up pretty good for the Eagles, but Schwaber, Rube, take it away.
Why don't you pull up the stats for us on it?
Okay, I'll give you the stats right now. I got them right here. And I can already tell where we're kind of going to go with this. Hurts, 10 of 14 for 114 yards passing and 1 touchdown. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns. Barkley, 17 carries for 176 yards and a TD. These are the Eagles' leaders. A.J. Brown, 5 receptions, 89 yards with the TD. Those are the ones I think that really matter.
Right. So, and to be honest, Saquon took the fourth quarter off.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, mercy me. Mercy me.
So they pulled all the starters in the beginning of the fourth quarter. Well, I'll tell you what, the first thing, Rube, obviously, boy, how nice was it just to have a relaxing game?
Oh my gosh. I went out yesterday to watch the game because it wasn't a national TV game, and I met my nephew who moved down here, and we didn't even need to have the volume on. It was a big Houston Texan bar, so they had that game on, and it was so pleasant just to sit back, have some nice food, have a drink, and not have my heart rate go above 80 beats per minute. So yeah, agreed.
It was awesome. Yeah. And, look, if there's anything negative, it still is, they still haven't scored in the first quarter. It was another slow start, which can hurt them against a better football team.
Right.
But, obviously, you got the defense, hasn't given up a touchdown in 2 games, 8 sacks yesterday. 2 from Jalen Carter, 2 from Nakobe Dean, 1 from Nolan Smith, 1 from Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff.
Bryce Huff?
Yeah.
I know. I'm kidding. You could have called it because he's back in the Meadowlands, right? Right.
But what's funny? Was I talking about this with you guys a couple weeks ago? Where no, I think I was talking to somebody else about this. It was really interesting. I had heard somebody on the radio talking about Bryce Huff, and they're like, what's wrong with the Eagles? Like, why don't they take a player and play to his strengths versus trying to get them to fit into his scheme? Because when Bryce Huff was on the Jets and had 11 sacks last year, he was always in a 4-point down stance, and the Eagles have him standing up straight. Right. So obviously if you're in a stance, you get more get off that way, basically. Right. And you can play to leverage. And I noticed this week he was down in a 4-point stance. And I was like, oh, that's a different change. And you know what? There's the sack. There it comes. But, all this being said, defense has really played well last couple weeks. But really, this was the Saquon Barkley game. He really just demolished them. I mean, there were hard runs. There were runs where he just knocked people over. There were runs where it took 5 guys to drag him, and he dragged them another 5 to 10 yards. There was the touchdown that he scored where he was basically stopped at the 2-yard line and he muscled his way in. So he was there to make a statement, and he made it. And it was just really enjoyable. It was just a beautiful thing to watch.
I got to tell you, all of that was great. I wish they would have given him the ball 2 more times because I needed them for fantasy last night. And
the only downside,
the only downside is this tush push thing was killing me yesterday. I just let the guy score a couple more times. Come on, man. So it was
unstoppable, though, man. You know that.
I know, but we didn't need it. We didn't need it.
There's a picture of one of the tush push touchdowns. You've got like Hurts in the end zone scoring the touchdown. You got all these people like on top of each other, and then you've got AJ Brown on the back of the pile sitting there like this. It was pretty funny. It was
Mark,
pretty funny.
I think I took a mea culpa last week when you were not here, and I got to say it again live.
Yeah.
To have AJ Brown any lower than 1 or 2 on the most indispensable Eagles list was a big mistake on my part. They are a different team with him in the lineup. There's no doubt about it. I think he's the MVP of the team.
I find it amazing that you had him that low on the list.
I think I gave more credit to Jalen Hurts starting the season.
Yeah.
And I heard a stat halfway, a few weeks ago. It was like Colin Cowherd, and they're unbelievably bad without him in the lineup. Hurts is under 500 without him in the lineup. Right. So, yeah.
And that leads us right to another part of this revenge game that the Grand Schwabini brings up, which is Hurts is now turnover free for 2 weeks, and that's big. I mean, you look at his stats now. Of course, take away the 2 rushing touchdowns, which is one of his strengths, and he was 10 of 14 for 140 yards. I mean, that alone is not going to win you a lot of games. I mean, it's a high completion percentage. But had you thrown an interception or 2 in there, right, this game could have been much different. So
actually, I would say 10 of 14 will win you a lot of games. Did you know? I saw this morning on Good Morning Football. When the Eagles run the ball more than they pass the ball under Nick Sirianni, they're 14-1.
Wow.
So the bottom line is, less pass attempts, less chances for interceptions, less chances for, Hurts to try to fit it through a tight window. There were a couple times where he could have gone for a pass through a tight window, and he chose not to yesterday. Just threw it out of bounds. And really, when Jalen Hurts plays error-free football, the Eagles are really hard to beat.
Yeah.
They're really hard to beat. So
yeah, and maybe
go ahead.
Okay, well, maybe the whole idea this year is that when you add somebody like Saquon Barkley, and Ruben and I talked about this last week a little bit. They have a lot of weapons. It's almost at times like they have too many weapons, if that's even possible.
They do. I mean, like I was concerned for Devontae Smith yesterday because he only had 1 catch for -2 yards.
Right. So you have to add, not only do you have the ego of these players who are excellent at their craft, and then you add on the competitiveness and their desire to be the guy that gets the ball. Now you've got, an offensive coordinator and a quarterback who's responsible for distributing said ball. And it's kind of like, when do you get to a point where all of these guys kind of back off from that? And humble themselves and say, look, the goal here, it's a bigger goal. There's going to be a game where Saquon does what he did. There's going to be a game where AJ is the guy. There's going to be a game where Devontae is the guy. And I think maybe this game came at the right time because the Giants are a bad team. And we can get into a little bit of the NFC East here as well, because the Commanders put up 40 on a bad Carolina team. Jaden Daniels went down with a rib injury.
Yeah.
And I just saw on the news just now that we have in the back of the studio that he's day-to-day. I also saw Brandon Ayuk has a season-ending ACL injury.
Boy, his year turned out to be great.
Yep, thank God he didn't go to the Steelers. And but this game where they were able to, you have to beat the bad teams really bad.
Yeah,
and they did. And maybe this is the game where Saquon got what he needed, and now that offense can start to kind of rally around itself, and thereby giving the defense a chance to play, because not only did the offense do it, but the defense had 8 sacks, and they held a terrible team to 3 points.
Right.
Well, far be it from me to, want to make sure that we think critically about this football team. And I'm not going to go negative town. However, the first half of the game, every time we got the third down, what happened? We got sacked. And
Yeah,
we got
we
sacked
did.
badly. And so I don't know how much of that was related to, hey, we had to shift some offensive linemen around. I did
Yeah.
see what's his name, Tyler Steen in
Yeah.
our backyard more than in our backfield more than I
Well,
wanted
we were
to.
out. We were out 2 starting offensive linemen. So
So is it that, or was it just blocking scheme or what have you? But that was a little bit concerning, that one. And then, of course, again, not scoring when you're supposed to score on scripted plays at the beginning of the game.
right.
I think from an offensive perspective, that was good. And still would like to see, maybe one throw a game over the middle, maybe one, maybe two. No underneath routes this week, no slip screens. It just seems like it's outside to AJ, or it's nothing.
Well,
And I want to.
we barely threw the ball this week, though. I mean, it
I,
was just
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it, but I would like to see something a little bit different. And like you said, I think going into the season, I think all 3 of us were unanimous. We were going to win these 2 games.
I think so. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think just from a vibe perspective, it felt really good, right? Coming out of Cleveland, it didn't feel very good.
Right.
And this game, yes, it felt good, but certainly I think there's opportunity on the offense. And listen, on the defensive side of the ball, I like this DeJean guy. I like Coop.
Yeah.
Cooper.
He plays with energy. He is where he needs to be. Quinyon looks pretty good. Even so the 2 draft picks look for real.
Yeah, they do.
And listen, again, we caveat everything with, it's a pretty bad football team, at least offensively. Their defense is decent, but
Right.
to get 8 sacks and 5, and I saw Nolan, what's his
Smith?
name? I saw Nolan Smith in the backfield looking like Reddick a few times.
Mhm.
So optimistic, and N'Kobe was smacking people, and that's
Yeah.
what you need from your middle linebacker. So I was really happy with the defense. Again, against not a great offensive team, they took Neighbors completely out of the game. So great effort by the defense, great effort by Saquon, and I think the kids are looking better.
Yeah, I think the obvious thing here was that the game plan for this game was to make it Saquon's game, and I think that speaks volumes. It sounds like it's obvious, but you know how offensive coordinators get. They get a little too technical when they don't need to.
Mhm.
And this was one of those things where I bet the gut feeling was Saquon's going back to New York to play the Giants. We're just going to make this game about him. Everybody else stay inside your lanes and let Saquon do his thing. And they featured it, and he did his thing. So that's a good sign, because we're going to talk now about what's coming up, and that's the Bengals game. And
Right.
what are the keys, we think, to victory? Because now the Bengals are kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde. sort of team.
Yeah, what are they, 3-4?
I'm going to
Yep.
look that up here in a
Yeah,
second.
they won their last two, and coming in against us, are looking to get to 500.
Yeah, and they also just beat the Browns.
Yeah.
By a touchdown.
Yep.
Right. By the way, you heard it here first. Now that Deshaun Watson is out for the year with a torn Achilles, you watch the Browns get better now, because Jameis Winston's going to be their quarterback, and I'd be willing to bet you they go on a little run. But their defense is still pretty darn good. Although they did trade Amari Cooper, that can't help.
Yeah. Yeah. Who did Amari Cooper go to? I could not.
Bills.
The Bills. That's
Buffalo.
right. Bills.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all. What's his name needs? Josh Allen. That's all he needs is Amari Cooper. But and the Bengals are arguably a better team than the Giants.
I mean, look, the Bengals, I mean, they lost the game, but they put up like 40 points against the Ravens.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I mean, look, Jamar Chase is one of the most unstoppable players I've ever seen.
Right.
And also T. Higgins is pretty darn good on the other side. So yeah, it's gonna be tough. That's gonna be a real test for our young corners.
Yeah, the Bengals team leaders right now, Burrow is his QBR is 75.6. Which is okay.
He started slow because Chase was out and Higgins was out to start the season.
Yeah, Jamar Chase has 39 receptions for 620 yards.
And he's played 3 games?
6 touchdowns. Yeah, something like that. And Chase Brown is their leading rusher with 66 carries for 327 yards and 3 touchdowns. Burrow has 14 touchdown passes. I mean, arguably they're not lighting the world on fire, but yes, Jace, if he has a good game.
Well, they're a very good offensive team. I'm gathering that their record is probably more because I've heard people say that their defense is pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, it is a game where we may need to match scoring with scoring. And if that happens, then we need, a multifaceted attack. We need the run and the pass next week. So, we haven't played our A game yet, and we certainly haven't played our A game from a passing standpoint. So that's really what we got to, be on the mark with next week. We got to be able to throw the ball more effectively than we have probably all season.
So here are some stats that are going to back up what you're talking about here. They're 7th in the league in passing.
Who, Cincinnati?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're 10th in the league in scoring. So they're in the top half and in the top 10 in passing yards. They're 28th in rushing yards and 21st in points against.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to do is you want to challenge them to beat you with the run. So you're going to be playing more. I don't know if you're playing more man to man or you're keeping, 2 safeties high, Tampa 2, and just taking the pass away and taking Jamar. If I'm the Eagles, I'm doing what Bill Belichick did. Pick the number 1 guy on the other team, shut him down no matter what, make everybody else beat you. That's what I'm doing.
Well, and that would be Jamar Chase.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's all easier said than done. I mean, I think that one of the things that I think, defensive coordinators can do in these cases is outsmart themselves and say that we're going to pull 8 guys back. You can't let Joe Burrow sit there and, have all day to throw the ball, because if you do, he's going to find those guys. So you got to get pressure on him. You got to rattle him, kind of throw him off, make him force throws early, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's what it's going to be about. They don't really have much of a running game.
No.
So, look, I mean, the bottom line is to win this game, we'll give our, let's start with you, Rube. What would be your keys to victory?
I think we got to sack the quarterback. I think you're exactly right. You can't let Burrow sit back there and pick you apart, because he will. Jamar Chase is good, but they got other weapons outside. T. Higgins is a beast.
Mm-hmm.
Their tight end's pretty good. The running backs are serviceable, right? It'll be
Mhm.
interesting to see if Sidney Brown gets to lay a stick on his brother, right? Chase Brown's his brother. So that'll be interesting to watch. But to me, yeah, we're gonna have to score points because you got to figure that Cincinnati's going to score some points. But we got to make it uncomfortable for Joe Burrow. If we do, and our defense plays like the way it did this week, and we got a great game, under our belt now, and everyone's feeling good, we win. I think otherwise, it's going to be problematic. I don't think we're going to outscore them.
Yeah. I mean, one thing to keep in mind too is we are playing in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So that makes it a little bit more difficult. And I do truly believe that Cincinnati I don't know if they'll make the playoffs, but I think they're a playoff caliber team. So, 3-4, I don't think really speaks to what they are. They're more like a 10-7, kind of 11-6 type of team. It's just where they are right now. So I think this is actually the week where it's going to be pretty crucial. I think that we have to score in the first quarter this week, because we don't want to be playing from behind all game, because that's going to take Saquon Barkley out of the game. And then that's going to force, bad passing and 3-and-outs and turnovers. I think it's going to be really important to score in the first quarter and have a really balanced offensive attack. Like, for example, I'd be fine with, Saquon Barkley with like 75 yards rushing and both AJ and Devontae go over 100. That's the kind of game I think we need to beat this team.
One of the things I also noticed about Cincinnati yesterday is they returned a kick for 100 yards. So, I think on paper, probably, we're probably better on paper. They've got just as many big studs on offense, but our defense is better. It would be nice to see our special teams do something this
Well, what do you
week.
think about Cooper DeJean? I think he's looked pretty strong running these punt returns back. I think it's just a matter of time before he busts one.
Yeah, I like it, but God knows I don't want him to get hurt either. And he's one of those guys that gives the extra effort. You could see it on the couple of returns yesterday. So we got to be careful with putting a new stud defender running back kicks. It worries me a little bit, but I'd like to see something, man. We haven't seen anything from our special teams this year. I'd like to see something.
Well, and you know where I stand. You take away Jamar Chase, and the Bengals are an average team. So I think the Eagles secondary has their work to do. I agree with getting pressure on Joe Burrow, but he has shown at times that he is pretty cool under pressure. Joe Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
So, I think if you're focusing on taking Chase out of the game and you're able to do that, doesn't matter if you win by 1 point, a win's a win. I happen to believe that the Eagles after this game, it's almost a sigh of relief. Wow, we can really put a good game together on both sides of the ball. Because as we were saying before the show, you look at a team like the Commanders putting 40 up on the Panthers, who are horrific. But if you're a good team, you beat the bad teams and you don't beat them by 1 point. You beat them by a touchdown or more. So regardless of whether or not it was the Giants, a rivalry, the fact is all 22 guys lined up on both sides of the ball, each down, and the Eagles laid a beating on the Giants. That's what they should have done based on the talent that they have on the field. So ride this wave into Cincinnati, put together a good game plan, focus on taking Jamar Chase out of that, putting pressure on Burrow. That's how you get a win. Special teams, of course, those are the variables. If there's a like in the Steelers game yesterday, there was an interception that bounced off a Jets receiver and happened to bounce into the hands of a defensive back. Well, that could happen in any game. Mm-hmm. So you have to assume no turnovers, and you have to assume that on special teams you're not going to allow a kickoff for a touchdown, a run back for a touchdown.
Well, you hope since there was one last week, it's not going to happen this week.
Right.
It's usually like their last kickoff return for a touchdown was 2011.
Yeah.
Just like Myles Garrett jumped over the line and blocked a kick again this year.
Yeah.
I don't know how we did not plan for that. Chris disagrees with me, but I don't know how you not game plan for that.
That's a once in a while kind of. You can't game plan for that. You don't know if he's going to get that high. So anyway, moving on to page 2, right? So I want to remind everybody that you can follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia, the podcast that I drop right after the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere you get your anyone
Stinking podcast.
there. And of course, you can follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia on YouTube. We're live right there right now at Philadelphia Sports Porch. Page 2. Well, I mean, we're going to talk baseball. The Dodgers, they took the Mets right out and they clobbered them.
They clobbered them, man. I mean, like they scored 10 runs like 3 times.
I'll pull that up right now.
It was just amazing. Well, first of all, what was really frustrating was to see just how patient of hitters the Dodgers are. I mean, there was like one game where they had like 10 walks, like the Mets were trying to do the same thing with the Phillies, just try to get us to chase, and they just weren't chasing. And, so basically the question is, do you feel better or worse? And I actually feel both. I feel better because I feel like, well, maybe the Dodgers really are the best team, and they did have a better record than us, and so maybe it would have ended against the Dodgers anyway. I feel worse because I feel like this series really exposed that the Mets really aren't that good.
Well, here
they were just the hot team.
Just to take you back to an earlier comment, the Dodgers in their 4 wins scored 9, 8, 10, and 10 runs. The Mets in their 2 wins scored 7 and 12 runs. So,
hitting counts.
I think 2 of those were shutouts though too, weren't they?
Yes. Game 1 was 9-0. Game 3 was 8-0. So, right. Of course. I'm just saying that everybody scored a lot of runs. When they won, they all scored a lot of runs. There was no 2-1, 1-0 game.
But but the bottom line is it was an easy series for the Dodgers. I mean, they were up 3-1, and then of course, New York gets their like, hey, our farewell game win 3-2, and then it was, see you later.
Yeah.
So, and it just kind of sucks. Like what it kind of says to me is like the Mets weren't even as good as the Phillies when the Phillies were the Mets, and the Phillies made it all the way to the World Series. They weren't even that good. They were just a hot team, and it was really more that the Phillies bats stunk and their bullpen stunk.
Yeah.
It was really more the Phillies sucking than the Mets being anything special. That's what I think makes me feel worse. The only thing that makes me feel better is that we probably weren't good enough to beat the Dodgers. Rube, your assessment.
I can see his wheels are turning.
Yeah, it's hard for me to feel better or worse. It sucks that we were out, and to be honest with you, I haven't been able to watch an inning baseball since then. So I certainly followed what was going on and in both series. If you said, Rube, you got to pick one or the other, I would say I feel better because New York winning anything just sucks, period. And I really hope the Yankees don't win. So I'm going to root for the National League. I'm going to root for the Dodgers. And if New York doesn't get a title, that'll make me feel good.
How much money do you think Shohei Ohtani's got on it?
You mean his bookie? You mean his trainer or whatever he was? His translator, his interpreter?
Yeah, the translator.
Yeah.
What does
Let me tell you something.
Translator have on it?
I thought Ohtani. I didn't really watch him much when he was with the Angels because it was the Angels. But wow, is he good?
Oh, he's unbelievable.
Yeah,
wow, is he good?
Yeah,
he's unbelievable.
I think his trainer probably has a cool $100,000 on it.
Isn't he in jail? Isn't his interpreter in jail now or something?
Doesn't mean he can't bet. There's ways, Rube. There's ways.
True.
I personally I was born a Yankees hater. because I was born as an Orioles fan, and they are the evil empire to me. I always liked the Dodgers.
I feel the Dodgers are the Yankees of the National League.
They really are, but they're not as they just don't. First of all, they haven't been in 41 World Series,
Right. Well,
and they haven't won 27.
Yeah, and they're not. I mean, they're not as. I mean, you don't hate them as much,
right?
Because their fans don't even care.
Yeah,
it's like it's.
Well, and they live all the way out there too.
They're like in LA. It's like they show up in like the fourth inning,
right?
Like, hey, there's a baseball game.
Yeah. I don't. I think that's a little bit more of an urban myth. I think there are a lot of real Dodgers fans out there because they've been the Dodgers in LA for many, many years now after moving in from Brooklyn.
But listen, let's face it. This is if there's going to be a series that people are going to watch, it's going to be this one. I think
that's true.
Listen, they're the two best teams. The two best teams made the World Series. So let's see who's got it.
Well, it's number 1 versus number 3.
Yeah,
I beg your pardon.
The Phillies had the second best record.
Yeah.
Well, the Phillies were 30. The Phillies were 33 and 33 the second half of the year.
Yeah, but truth be told, this is a classic matchup between two powerhouses, both originally from New York, and everybody wanted to see Ohtani. Everybody wants to see Judge. A lot of people want to see Soto.
I'll tell you what. We got to get Soto for next year.
Is he a free agent?
He's a free agent.
No, I'm hoping the Orioles get him.
Now the thinking is that obviously if the Yankees win, they'll never let him go.
I don't think they're going to let him go anyway.
Why would he want to go?
Yeah, seriously.
Money.
Yeah, but I mean, he's going to get. Who's going to pay him the money? You think the Yankees don't have the money?
Somebody could pay him the money, sure.
Yeah, but I mean, do you think the Yankees wouldn't match it?
It's just like getting Bryce Harper.
A
million teams wanted to pay Bryce Harper. The Phillies paid him the most.
Right, but what I'm saying is, do you think the Yankees wouldn't pay him the most? Here's a statistic that a friend of mine made evident to me just yesterday. Juan Soto has more walks than strikeouts, and he bats ahead of Aaron Judge.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that. First of all, I think the Yankees will pay anything to keep that guy batting in front of Aaron Judge.
I'd rather have. Yeah, I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rube. Go ahead.
I was going to say, listen, I'd rather see us go spend the money on a couple guys who can get on damn base, man. I don't think we need another slugger or superstar. We pay enough money to Turner and a Harper and so on and so forth. I'd rather see us go get, one or two good outfield bats and a closer than pay all that money and go get Soto. My opinion.
You're probably right, but that's an outlier out there that I've heard.
Yeah,
that the Phillies may lurk on Soto.
Well, it would not surprise me one bit if after the season is over.
And if you guys didn't watch, I'll tell you what. The home run that he hit to win, what was it? Was it the last game? Or was it no, because they blew him out in the last game.
It was a game before.
Oh no! I think it was
Cleveland won that game.
No, it was the last game. Yeah, it was game 5. They won in 5. It basically was tied 2-2. I think it was in the 8th, and Soto was up with 2 guys on, and I think 2 outs. It was like probably the best at bat I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, I saw it.
It was unbelievable. I mean, he was just getting crappy pitches.
He was fighting them off.
And he was fighting them off and fighting them off and fighting them off. And then finally, he got a high fastball, which was really hard to catch up to, and he just clobbered it.
Yeah. Well, there's no question he's a talented hitter. Do I think he would make a difference in the Phillies lineup? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm with you, Rube, in that they need, and I think the Grant Schwabini is too. I mean, they need a big boy closer, no doubt. But if you could add a big boy closer and him, and the Phillies have the money to spend too, it's not like they're a small market team. So it's really going to come down to, and I think we're all right about this, who's going to pay him the most money? Well, will that be the Dodgers or the Yankees? I mean,
or the Mets.
Or the Mets.
Right.
Right. Right.
Or,
I mean,
or somebody else. Somebody, the Giants often throw themselves into the fray. The Padres throw them into the fray.
they
Well,
tried.
wasn't he with the Padres? Wasn't
Yes.
Soto with the
Yes.
Padres? And we
Yes.
saw how
That's
that
the
worked
thing.
out.
That team was terrible.
And that was
I mean, not terrible, but they weren't that
was
good.
playoff team.
that was actually something kind of interesting. Was that the Padres were bad with Juan Soto? Not immediately. At first they made the playoffs and they were good with Juan Soto, but then they were bad with Juan Soto, and there were a lot of reports that he's just a bad guy in the locker room. So they trade Juan Soto. Obviously, he's no issue in the Yankees locker room. But then the Padres got better without Soto.
Right.
Which was interesting.
Well, I think it's because when Soto shows up in the Yankees locker room, there's a mystique, and you also have a guy named Aaron Judge.
Right.
And you're not going to argue with who's better. I mean, it's close, but you're not going to argue with who's better. Steve is in the house today. He says the number 1 versus the number 6 payroll in the World Series, and MLB couldn't be happier. Now, of course, he's talking about his beloved Pittsburgh Pirates, being the biggest Pirates fan on the planet. Nutty would love the luxury tax for whoever pays him, and he believes the Pirates are going to get Soto and make their payroll the 20th highest.
I don't even know if they get the 20th.
Yeah. Seriously.
What are there, 30 teams? Maybe if they
32.
If they pay Soto, $500 million, maybe they get the 27.
Yeah, I know. It's so terrible. I always hold the hope out there that my beloved Orioles would make a run for this guy, which they might, because they have decided they're going to open up the purse strings. But once again, we aren't there yet. The offseason isn't here, and
all right. Well,
we'll see.
Page 3
coming up on the Sports Porch Philadelphia. Last week, Rube and I decided it was a little bit soon to talk about the Flyers, but we did have a guest on, Hockey Jesus, from our Pittsburgh affiliate.
Yep.
And
I'll tell you, I'm going to give Hockey Jesus a little bit of credit because he did point out Tyson Forster, who is an excellent player on the Flyers and is sure to be a soon household name and star. But boy, did Hockey Jesus drop the puck. Matvey Michkov in the house, whole league's talking about him, and Hockey Jesus doesn't even bring him up. Was it the subconscious? Was he because he's a Penguins fan? Was he just was it a slight?
Yeah, it's Crosby bias. It's Crosby bias.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that would be like, if it was going to be Crosby or Malkin's first game ever, and I just decided to talk about, the team without talking about those guys. It was just very interesting.
Yeah.
Very surprising.
I mean, I thought he was a good guest. I thought he brought some good insight. I think my takeaway from the conversation, other than the Michkov Mania stuff, is that he thinks that the Flyers are a team on the rise, and they have a lot of good young talent, but they need goaltending.
They do. So Rube, did you get a chance to watch any of the games?
I have. I have ESPN Plus now, and apparently all the games are on ESPN Plus, or at least the ones that I have.
Nice.
So I have, and a few things I've noticed. One is, does Michkov have a brother, a sister maybe, that can stop a fucking puck? Excuse my French.
Well, no, I mean, Sam Erson's been pretty decent.
Erson's been good. This Fedotov guy is horrible. I don't care if it's his second game, third game. Too many bad goals. Number one. Number two is, I don't know if both of these games, who started against the Canucks the other night that we lost 3-0? Was that Erson?
I think so.
It might have been Erson.
Yeah, the home opener was a real letdown. I mean, they really did not show up for that game. That was disappointing.
Yeah, what I'm noticing too, and in 2 or 3 of the games that I've watched, we're giving up back goals like in chunks. Like we'll see. Chris and I were talking about this last week. I watched the Calgary game. It was 2-2, and all of a sudden it was 5-2, and I watched it for 5 minutes in the third period. Right. Same thing happened the other night where we gave up 2 goals at the beginning of the second period. So, regardless of who the goalie is, I think our defense needs to find its way back to what we were last year, blocking shots and doing the things we needed. Sure. And we've got to have puck control in the front end to keep them, opposing teams from just peppering our defense and our goalies. The other thing I noticed is the referee missed a bad boarding call when Michkov got knocked into the boards against who was it? He took a shot, and it was one of those ones where he was facing the boards and someone hit him from behind. But he got up and he played and he looks good. That we look like a better team with him on the ice for sure.
How about that all of a sudden we have Michkov and the power play is fixed?
And the power play is fixed. Yeah, that's right. That's way to accentuate the positive. Have we scored a power play goal in almost every game? Obviously not when we got shut out, but
yeah. Well, and actually the cool thing too is the way Michkov plays the power play, how he plays behind the goal.
It's very Gretzky-like, isn't it?
Yeah. He just plays behind the goal, just sets everybody up, and then sometimes goes in for the little sneak attack in the side. So yeah, and it was pretty exciting when they were. I think it was Calgary that they were playing, and Michkov had like 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. So that was exciting. That's the kind of stuff that basically stars do. So that was exciting, but they still have such a long way to go. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They don't really have a backup goaltender right now. And it's just a long way to go. I mean, like, I think that what they're doing is they're playing around a lot with the lines. And like, for example, like I would love to see Michkov stay on a line with Konechny because the two of them were really clicking. And then, in the last game that I was watching, it was like Konechny was, they had Michkov on a line with like Farabee. Like, don't put him on a line with Farabee. Come on.
I like their fourth line, right? Lawton moved to the fourth line, and the game that I was watching, that appeared to be their most effective line was their fourth line.
Yeah.
And I was also reading, I think I was reading somewhere that the idea of having Michkov with some of the younger guys to help bring them up as opposed to having him play with Konechny. I like that idea. I like the young kids playing together. Konechny and who's his center? Who's Konechny's center? Or is
Frost? Well, the line they've used the most is Frost, Michkov, and Konechny.
Okay, so I don't mind seeing Michkov playing with the younger guys, so to speak. Let Konechny carry that line, and let's have 2 lines that can score, or maybe 3 lines that can score. That's going to be our problem this year is scoring the puck.
Well, I mean, obviously it's, the main scorers are like, Michkov, Forster, and Konechny can score. And then beyond that,
where's Tippett? Where's Tippett this year?
Oh yeah, and that's true. And that's another thing too. Tippett's off to a really slow start. And I watched him play one game, and I thought he was phenomenal out on the ice, but he just seems to be hitting the glove, constantly. So
little snake bit.
Yeah, he'll eventually get it going, but it's the kind of thing where the defense is young. Like a guy like Drysdale. Drysdale could be a top 6 defenseman, but right now he's got the shot of a top 6 defenseman, but he's not playing defense like a top 6 defenseman. You know what I mean? So you got to work through that kind of stuff. A lot of them are still young, and we have to kind of, give them time to mesh.
I'm okay, and I'm okay with all that.
We
talked about it. You know what? Having a top 5 pick to me with this team feels a lot better than us flirting with the playoffs and not getting a top 5 pick. So,
and also too, I don't know if that Jet Lachenko, I don't really know if he's ready yet. I can see he's got skill, top end skill, but I just don't know if he's ready yet. I think that might have been a little bit of a rush job there.
I love the name though.
Jet Lachenko.
So they have the Capitals coming up tomorrow.
They have a game tonight
at home. No
game
tomorrow.
Tonight?
Okay. Yeah, it says the 22nd, which is tomorrow.
Okay.
At 6 p.m. And again, it's early. And right now, Steve makes the point. They're 1-3-1 at the bottom of the division, but you're talking after 5 games. That doesn't mean much.
Right. You win 2 games and you're 3-3-1.
Yeah. So before we turn the page, you can follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia on YouTube at youtube.com/@Philadelphia Sports Porch. And of course, I'm going to drop the podcast right after the show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or Rube, anywhere you get your
friggin' podcasts.
See, he does it right.
Yeah.
Okay, he's
Maybe-
not bucking the system.
Maybe this is his thing now.
Let me tell you something. I patterned my game after the Grand Schwabini, and
Thank you,
you
Rob.
know,
Thanks for the respect.
you're the original. You're the
Hey.
If I was there, I'd kiss the ring.
There you go.
Big O, baby.
Yeah, yeah.
Big O.
I'm not so sure I would kiss the ring. I'm worried about where those hands have been. Okay, page 4. It's NBA season.
Yeah,
right?
opening night, Wednesday night, Milwaukee Bucks
And
are in town.
we want to know if everyone on the Sixers is injured.
that was my thing. Now, actually, I think I heard today that everybody is expected to play on Wednesday night.
What happens if everybody is injured? Who plays? Do they pick people from the stands?
But we all know, like, so this is the way it is going into the opener. So Embiid, they decided he wasn't going to play in the preseason because why should he? We just want him healthy for the playoffs. And then he made a statement about how they're saying he's not going to play any back-to-backs this year. Which, hey, if he's healthy for the playoffs and that's why, then I guess I'm okay with it. But whatever. You got Maxey, I think, hurt his thumb, but I guess he's okay. And you had Paul George kind of came down funky on his knee in a preseason game, but apparently he's okay as well. So I don't know.
Buy or sell. Grand Schwabini.
Yeah.
Chris, the technical director. Buy or sell. Maxey, George, Embiid, all play in the same game together, not at the same time, more than 25 times this year.
Ooh.
I buy that. They have to.
I'm buying it because they have to too.
Yeah.
It's not been done with the noggin. It's been done with the heart.
Yeah. Well, it's not a winning formula. Those are your 3 guys.
Right.
Yeah, but my point being is I got to be optimistic Philly fan. I have a hard time with the Sixers. You guys are going to have to keep me in line this year because I just don't buy into what we've done or what we're doing. Why am I or is anyone surprised that Paul George, who gets hurt every year, who's a good player, is aging, is hurt already?
Actually, he didn't get hurt last year at all.
Okay, well, every other year he gets hurt. So I'm selling. I'm saying 25 games, under 25 games, all 3 of them play.
But what's your prediction for how far does this team go? Do they get past the second round, which has been their Achilles heel?
I think they're the 4th best team in the East, maybe.
Ooh, that's harsh.
Even with the addition of Paul George?
Even with the
addition of the guy from France?
Yeah. So this is actually
really
the guy.
So we grew up with Dr. J, Moses Malone, Mo Cheeks, and Andrew Toney, and it has come to the guy from France.
Yeah,
come on, Schwab.
Everybody needs a guy from France.
What about Caleb Martin for 3?
So wait,
that just tells me you agree with me. Got it.
Let me unpack this just real quick, Rube, and then we'll get on to what we're watching.
Okay.
Do you really think that Paul George was subtraction by addition as opposed to the opposite, addition by subtraction?
I mean, listen, it's nice to have another star on the team, but he's 34 years old and he's already been hurt once in the preseason.
And you're fit. What are you, 54 now?
Yeah.
Okay, he's a young, spry, 34-year-old professional athlete. I think I think they're gonna do well with him.
Remember when we were 34?
Yeah, man, I was dunking over you every day.
I was still getting out of bed without pulling a groin.
Right. I mean, that was I mean,
you guys are gonna have to keep me in check this season. Believe me. But I'm just gonna, for the sake of just saying it live on a tape show. I'm 25, maybe low. I purposely did that to make us think a little bit, but it's no more than 30 games that they're all going to play at the same time. And that's what worries me.
Track of that. Can you keep track of that, Schwaber?
Yeah.
No, he says no more than 30 games with Embiid, Maxey, and George on the court at the same time.
healthy and playing on
No,
this
no, no,
on
no,
the
no,
team.
no, 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 no. Take the healthy away. They can be nicked up. All
Okay,
play.
they could be nicked up, but they don't have to. But yes, they're
Play
playing in
together.
the same game together.
That seems like a terrible prediction.
Maybe
for me.
this year we'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
I
keep track of it.
want to really believe that, and I hope you guys tell me I'm wrong and dead
I think
wrong.
you're wrong from the get go. I really do. I'm not just saying that. I'm just saying unless well, of course, if you get a serious injury, then poof, you were right. But if they're healthy enough to play, you are not playing less than 30 games in an 81 games, 82 game season without your 3-star players on the court. You're just not doing that. That's not it. They're not going to win. They might as well have not even gotten Paul George.
My point is that they're not going to. This is minus the healthy scratch stuff and Embiid not playing every night or not playing back to backs. I am skeptical that both Embiid and George are built for the long haul.
Okay.
In this season.
Okay.
So someone's going to get hurt. There's going to be a knee that's going to have somebody out for a week. There's going to be an orbital bone fracture that's going to have somebody out for 4 games.
It's a hell of a prediction.
There's going to be something
There's
there.
going to be a recurrence of Embiid's Bell's palsy.
Just I've seen the movie too many times. So there's your segue, Chris.
We'll see how far we get into the season with that, Rube. And if you're wrong, we will officially welcome you into the Sports Porch family by humiliating you. Right, Schwaber? Yes, absolutely. You're not part of the team until you've been humiliated several times. Okay. The Sports Porch Philadelphia. You can catch the podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your friggin' podcasts. I'll save you guys from that. And you can follow it on YouTube at youtube.com// Philadelphia Sports Porch. What we're watching, well, what is that, Schwaber? You want to give us a little intro into that?
There are so many things that you can watch, and there's so many channels to stream from. HBO Max, just called Max now. Peacock, Amazon Prime, Hulu,
keep it going.
Apple TV Plus.
Yep. Okay, that's enough.
And so on and so forth.
Right. So what do? We watch a lot of it.
We watch it so that you don't have to watch bad TV.
That's right.
If it's good, we'll tell you it's good and watch it. If it's bad, we'll tell you stay away.
That's exactly right. So we're going to let Rube start off this week. Rube, this is actually a holdover from last week because Rube and I were having so much fun without you. We talked Philly sports long into the night, so we could never get to this.
Right.
Rube is watching
The Tulsa King.
Yes.
So listen, as a Philadelphia guy, how do you not watch a Stallone series?
He's not from Philly.
No, but he's an
adopted son.
Yeah, whatever.
He's an adopted son. That's a good.
All right, I digress. I'm sorry.
So, I watched it on kind of a whim. I never had Paramount Plus, another one of the streaming services. We, just like ESPN Plus now, Spectrum has hooked us up with Paramount Plus to maintain us as a customer. And I'm like, I'm going to watch the Tulsa King. So I turn the Tulsa King on. My lovely bride, Leslie, comes in from yoga class. She goes, unbelievable. You're watching Stallone. Isn't it, enough is enough already with Stallone and the Rocky movies or whatever. So 5 minutes later, she's sitting at the table and she's watching. She comes over. She goes, well, maybe I'll just watch this first one. So even Leslie was drawn in by Stallone's charm. Stallone plays a mafioso, a mafia guy who was in jail. It starts with him coming out of prison after being there for 25 years. And essentially, he's in New York. He goes back to the family and the family boss. And regardless of the fact that he didn't rat on anybody for the 25 years he's in jail, he is exiled to start a new territory out in Tulsa. And there's where the fun begins. Really enjoy it. Interesting cast of characters. I think Stallone is. I think he's charming in a mafia kind of way, and I get a kick out of it, and I've enjoyed the show so far.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I have not watched it.
I haven't either. I will check it out. I'm curious about it.
And it's on Paramount Plus, as Rube had said.
I don't have Paramount
earlier.
Plus. So I got to wait till it gets picked up by like Netflix or Hulu.
Yeah. Well, apparently Texas is a very free state.
Yeah.
And they let you watch anything you want on their cable stuff,
So
right?
we just threatened them with one of our big guns.
Okay. There you go. That's
There
it. All right. Schwaber is watching
Nobody Wants This on Netflix.
Hmm.
Either of you guys watched this yet?
No.
Leslie Rubinstein has, and I walked away.
It did.
You walked away.
It did just get renewed for a second season.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was very good. So it's obviously it's a romantic comedy. It stars Adrian Brody and Kristen Bell, who I think Kristen Bell is just as cute as all get out.
Yep. Here's Schwaber with another rom-com.
And so basically the way the story goes is Adrian Brody is he's like an assistant rabbi. So he's pretty religious. And Kristen Bell is like, I guess like a girl like in her late 20s, early 30s. She runs a podcast with her sister. And, their podcast is about relationships and how she always chooses the wrong men and blah, blah, blah. And she meets this rabbi who just broke up, just called off an engagement.
But by the way, Schwabe, not to interrupt, it's Adam Brody, not Adrian Brody.
Oh, I'm sorry, Adam Brody.
Yeah, Adrian Brody is a totally different guy. But keep going.
That would be someone about somebody, going after a dad.
Right. All the same.
Yeah. Or a grandpa.
And so, obviously she falls for the rabbi falls for her, and it's funny. And actually, Rube, it would be especially funny for you because there's a lot of good Jewish humor in it.
Okay.
And
that and just like you, my friend, we married blonde shiksas.
We sure did. Yes. And actually that's the funniest thing.
I feel so left out.
That's the funniest thing. That's the funniest thing. Like the end of the first episode, it's like she shows up to watch like one of his sermons, and then he's talking to her, and everybody thinks like he's the cute rabbi, like, and everybody's like, who's this girl talking to the rabbi? And then the mother just like looks in and she's like, that's a shiksa.
Let me tell you,
it's pretty hilarious, and it's good. It's a good story, so I highly recommend it.
All right, nobody wants this, and apparently Rube doesn't want it either. Okay, I finished watching a show on Apple TV Plus that I'm not going to recommend. The last thing he told me,
I liked it.
I did not. One of the reasons, it not because it stars Jennifer Garner, because I think she's as cute as all get out. But you
guys in here cute.
Yeah. I mean, look, for me, when it's basically about a happy couple who are raising the husband's daughter to a different marriage. And he's in some big tech startup thing, and she's just going about her life. She's like a decorator and architecture, architect or something like that. And all of a sudden, some shit goes down, and they raid the husband's business for a Ponzi scheme and defrauding investors. And he disappears, and he leaves a note, and the note says, "Protect her," meaning the daughter. So that's the last thing he ever told me. What I didn't realize when I saw that in the first episode was that was pretty much the last time you would ever see that guy until the very end. And I don't feel like I'm giving anything away because...
What's wrong with that?
Well, okay, I'm just going to be blunt. Nobody died. There was no violence. There was a twist.
There was moments where you had to get away.
Right. But there was a twist. Okay. And the twist was that like he really wasn't guilty of what they were saying. And that's not really the reason he was running. that was interesting.
So something was interesting.
Yes, I didn't say it was the worst thing I ever saw, but it was. It just, there was no sex, there was no violence, there was nothing, and like,
sounds like you have an issue.
I have an issue. Well, it's kind of like okay, here it is. I felt like I was watching old, not even cable TV, an old drama on NBC from the 1990s, where they really couldn't get into anything that was really meaty and juicy. So it wasn't like I just wanted to see sex. It was like there was no romance. There was no like if
everything meaty and juicy in your life,
pretty much. So I mean, if it's not, Schwaber, you know me, I'm not having a good time.
Well, apparently.
Yeah. Okay. So to dumb it down a little bit,
it wasn't compelling for Chris.
There you go. That's exactly right. I found Jennifer Garner's acting to be meh.
You like things,
to use a Steve word, meh.
You like things to be raw,
yes,
and gritty,
dark.
Yeah. That's just you.
Yeah,
that's just you.
Look, man, if you're going to be chased around by the U.S. Marshals and you're going to run and there's people after you, I mean, I want somebody shot in the head. That's what I want.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought, but look, I mean, I didn't think it was anything great or phenomenal, but I just thought it was good fun to be had.
I didn't feel it was good fun at all. Not at all. But
it's a shame.
But I did last through the whole series until the very last scene. And when I saw the last scene, which I'm not going to ruin for anybody who decides they do want to give it a shot and see if I'm wrong, that's when it just went off the cliff for me. I was like, are you kidding me?
Off the cliff. Huh?
Off the cliff. All the way down to the bottom, crashing in a fiery, melting ball of shit. Right? I was trying to time that.
You're a piece of work.
I was trying to time that, and once again, my timing was off.
We got to clean up our language, kids.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, shiksa sounds like a pretty bad word to me.
It depends on who you talk to.
Yeah. I think you're right about that.
We can say it. You can't say it.
The double standards around here.
Like certain words.
A little too much for me. All right, you have watched the Sports Philadelphia. If you watched it live, you've been watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. Thanks so much for being here. I'm going to drop the podcast right after the show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get, Rob,
your Schwab,
freaking
Chris
podcasts. I'm your technical director. That's Rube. That's the Grand Schwabini. We are out. We'll see you next week, 6 p.m. Eastern Time.